Well, hello, going live today just to have a little discussion about some of the Action PC projects that I have going on. So, give it a minute or so, see who may join us. I've got one of the baseball card templates that I've used for the Major League Greats project that I'm working on, and I'm going to discuss the Negro League project, this one, because they kind of go hand in hand. And I'm testing out my camera location here because haven't turned my camera on any of these broadcasts, so I thought, well, maybe try this out this afternoon as I discuss some of these. Yesterday, Beatles Eternally and I played a test game with the Negro League file that I've created. I've got 55 players done. Some people have asked about the methodology behind that, so talk a little bit about how we're carding the players, and then also how I'm using the same approach to card a major league great file that I'm working on, something that I started probably about 12 years ago, and recently went and looked at some of the data that I'd collected. So I've got a little bit of a head start, although back then I had a file where I was taking a player's best 7 years, then a player's best 5 years. So ultimately now I've decided on an approach to take their best 3 years. Why? I don't know. That's where I landed after thinking about how I was going to approach this. So if any of you Action PC owners out there have the Action PC baseball game, a must own is the Baseball History Collection. I recently just upgraded to the 2022 version. I realized I had bought that collection when it first came out, and probably about 5 or 6 years ago, I believe. And then I recently realized, oh, there's different subsets now that they have, and updated players that have since retired that weren't on the original one. So I went ahead and got that this weekend. That's a great file for doing projects. You can read about it at the Action site because um, they have their own internal logic for how they decided what a peak slice of a player's career would be. And again, I'm not trying to emulate that. I mean, you can go grab it and grab any major league player that's played and use that file for a ton of projects. It's really cool. What I'm trying to do is just take my own, I guess, smaller slice or peak where my 5 year franchise files, I take a player's best 2 years, 2 consecutive years. That's the slice I decided on. This project, I'm just going to grab their best three as decided by me, right? So I guess since it's my project, I get to decide all that good stuff. But we've taken that same approach for the Negro League file that I'm working on for Beatles Eternally's, uh, I guess, project, you could say, or league draft file that they want to do. Hopefully, I'll have that done in a few months. So, testing that out. As I've gone along, I've decided, as I do the Negro Leagues, I want to build at the same time in parallel some MLB greats taking their best 3 years in the same time frame. So I'm looking at 1900 to the 1940s, or you know pre 1950, and that's what I'm building for the Negro Leagues. I'm going to build those major league greats first, and then of course I would love to expand that on to greats from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, you name it. And as I go through this, I'm just a fan personally. I got into this whole thing years ago as a kid, loving baseball cards, right? And the stats on them and the pictures. So what I've done to enhance my experience with Action, and one of the reasons why Action's become my go-to baseball simming platform, is the fact that you can really dress it up with uniform, photos, logos, all that good stuff, the ballparks that you like, and it really enhances the gaming experience for me. So as I go through these projects at the same time I'm creating these, I'm making sure that I grab the player photos I like. I created a template here. I've got one of the examples up here on the screen, which is Al Simmons. For the Negro League, I came up with a template, and I can pull. Let me pull up one of those, and you can see. Let's just see here. I've got Joe Williams card right here, and I've got some different options here. And I came up with zoom in a little bit. I came up with this template, right? Just found a Negro League Baseball logo I like, dropped it in here, and just came up with this basic card format. So now I can just come in here and take my template, click on the text and change the name, and then lay this template over the photos that I find rather easily. And I use Snagit to create my templates. I'm not a graphic designer. I'm not, a professional, definitely an amateur with this, but I enjoy hunting down the pictures and assembling these. So it's added a lot to the project. I'm also looking at some of the biographies of the players. So in researching this file, we hope to have a few hundred of these players when I'm done for the Negro Leagues, and baseball card style photos for each of those players as well, and that I can make available to the community when I'm done. So I thought, well, let me keep the same template going. So I did that, and with the Major League greats, got Al Simmons. You'll see for the American League what I've done instead of for the logo there, I've just dropped in an American League logo. So I'm taking a player's best 3 years as decided by me. I use OPS Plus a lot. I'll look at some of the positions they were rated at and try to make a determination as to what are the best three. I average those three. And what I'm doing is, because they may come from well, they all come from a different ballpark, right? Different ballpark data. I'm taking the information from all those ballparks and then using StatHead to help put them in a designated year, because the game requires that they come from a designated year. So I'm manipulating the stats they've had in various other years and transferring those over to make it appear as though that 3 years I'm using, that average, was all done in one specific year. So for example, with Al Simmons, I can go back to his card and take a look. I'm using, there happen to be three in a row, 1929, 30, and 31. So I average those years, I get 1930. So now I am taking all of his data and applying it to the 1930 era and the ballpark information. And it's saving me from having to worry about, hey, you're using 3 years combined, but you're sticking them in 1 year as they came from 1 year's worth of a park. So I'm doing all the manipulation to guide it towards that 1 year on my end versus having to go in and change the ballpark data to make it average those 3 years. So it takes a little bit more time, but I'm looking for some accuracy on this, and it's the best kind of system that I've come up with so far. So having fun with that. Here's a couple other examples I've got of some of the cards here. Just trying to get some different photos and messing around with the colorization, just using some um, on-screen stuff. Here's another one I've grabbed. Sometimes you can grab a photo where somebody's done the hard work, right, and colorized it. Just trying to have at least 3 or 4 options for some of the players, as you may want to use different photos when you're out there. So this is fun for me, adds to the experience. And so I thought I'd just come on, see I've got 5 people joining us. Welcome everybody that's popping in. I'm just discussing, got a little break at lunch today. I'm getting the camera working. So I've got a camera on, and I'm just taking a chance to explain some of the projects. The 2 big ones I'm working on now are the Negro League project, building those out based on a player's best 3 years. That's a little bit more involved because I'm taking some of the Major League equivalency data. I'm looking at that, and then I'm also using stat heads as well and neutralizing. Since they came from a neutral park, I'm taking them and converting their stat line to match a 19 whatever year, right? Like if I'm using an average of their years, say it's a 1922 Negro League average I've got for them, I'm bringing that over and assigning them to like the 1922 National League. That way, all the hard work's been done on the outside, and StatHeads has been just wonderful tool for me to be able to get that data along with the Major League equivalencies to build those player cards. And I'm taking that same approach and doing it for the major league greats I'm using. I'm only using their top 3 years. But that way, it's kind of an apples to apples approach as I have these two universes of player cards files that you can use in the game, right? You can have a standalone Negro League file, use it for projects. Then you can also use the word barnstorm, somebody brought up last night, or merge those two for an all-time greats. And I'm going to focus on the major league greats and building some of those teams out. I've got the data done for about 50 players now. I'm going to build some of those teams out here before the weekend so that I can also not only test the Negro League files with themselves, but also against major leagues, just to kind of see how the files play out. We had a test game yesterday with Beatles where he beat my team we drafted last Friday and had a team of all-stars, and he pitched Satchel Paige against me, and he did some damage to my team. I had a loaded team, and Satchel Paige was pretty tough. So what's fun is it's allowing me to kind of test the file as I go and check the realism and check for any data entry errors, and also check to make sure that, I haven't made a mistake somewhere along the lines in applying some of the formulas that I'm using to build these teams out. So great to see everybody. Oh, here we go. People are chatting, and I didn't even see the chat. I had to hit the arrow down. This is a Ryder Cup 2020 cap I'm wearing. I have no idea where I got it. It's a funny thing. I don't remember buying it, but I had a short par 4 subscription because I love to play golf, and I believe I got this a couple years ago in some kind of a package that came. The Cubs, the Bears. Nice, he's here. Glad to see you. Big Clue. Yeah, I thought I'd come on. People could see, my ugly mug. Arnold Hunter's here. I hear from Arnold every week, which is great. Arnold's passionate and setting up his game and doing stuff. Yeah, and Jeff Hunter, I'm gonna see if I can post it. I will post it. Let's see if I can. I'll definitely do it. Thanks for the reminder. When I get off of this live feed, I will get and post that link. I sent it to Arnold today. It is from the OOTP Out of the Park forums. I think it's like a 3 gigabyte download, but you can download all the historical stadiums. And what it's done is they put them in a folder. So then I can go and look at, if I'm looking for one for old Comiskey, I can go and look at Comiskey and then look at the different year photos that they have. And it comes right from their 3D park modeling in the game. And I like some of them. So they're nice options. And so when I'm doing setting up a team here and I want like a 1920s Comiskey, I'll just go into that folder, find it, and drag the picture over into my ballparks folder for Action. I do play Action PC Golf Forever Remain 90, but I haven't in a while because it was odd. I was getting a weird message up on the screen, and I'd reported it to headquarters there, and I hadn't played it much. And then I ordered, when they had a sale around Christmas, I got a couple extra seasons, but I haven't got around to playing them in a while. Yeah, Arnold's saying it's a great ballpark file. I mean, it's like a 3.1 gig download, but I'm telling you, it's a wonderful thing because it's not going to be an easy install for you just to grab every photo in the file and drag it into your player photo section. It doesn't work that way, right? But in fact, let me pop it up here and I can show you what it looks like. I have it in all my great downloads in here. I find it this way, but it comes in it comes in a ballpark. So you have all of these different parks you can scroll through. And then when I want something, I'm like, hey, I'll go bring them in. So here's example. Here's Tiger Stadium from 1948 to 79. I open it up. There's a lot of stuff here that's meaningful for out of the park baseball. But what I look for here is they've got a 48 day and night. So if I pull up 1948, that's what it looks like. And I'm like, hey, this looks nice. So what I do is I'm like, hey, I want to use this one. I just right click on it, copy, and then I go over to my ballparks photo under DK Sports Data Baseball Ballparks, and I'll bet you I have it in here. I just go to paste it. Oh, I didn't have it in here. And now here it is down here with all my Tiger stadiums, which I have many different pictures of. Now I can click on it. Now I've got that ready to go in the game. So the cool thing, it's a big download, but I think it's awesome that you can go, here's my model. You can go right in here and start looking at all the photos it has, right? So some of the old parks, I think it's really cool. Like here's one with Candlestick. They've got some of the different outfield fence markers. Let's look at that one in the 60s. Daytime Candlestick. There you go. That will change a lot based on how they had that fence out there. But yeah, so when you download it, I mean, I know how everybody in this community is. Usually you love having more pictures than a few, right? So cool. Yeah, Jeff Hunter mentioned you're going to do a link. What else we got here? I'm going to make sure I catch this. Bought the history collection some time ago. It's a nice database. Yeah, Tape Saturator. Glad you're here. If you don't own that and you have Action PC, buy it. And again, I mean, it is probably one of the coolest files you can have. It's great for assembling draft teams, right? And they put a lot of work in there. They won't say, I don't know how many years they use for their slice, but the better career somebody had or the longer, they'll use like fewer to get their peak. But it's just really a great file. And then they have added new subsets. So there's even a subset that didn't exist before that has players based on their nationality. So it's like a World Baseball Classic. It's easy to set that up. James Brown Tate, hardest working man in sim homebrew. Yeah, I I feel so, but I love it. I mean, it's like therapy for me. It really is. I enjoy doing them. The Negro League project has turned into it's cool because I'm learning a lot about players that I knew a little bit, learned more about them, and some I didn't even know at all. So it to me, it's like a really great history project. And the fact that I'm looking through their bios and then getting pictures to make cards, it just kind of adds to the research for me. Same thing with some of these MLB greats too. It's just really cool to go and hunt down the photos um, as I build the team. Let me scroll through some more. Oh, here's Arky Vaughn. Got a few different pictures for Arky Vaughn. I know Beatles is a big fan, but you see, I just use the National League. So, for example, if I'm using a player that had 2 years in the American and one in the National, I'm just throwing in the one that they played the most for the 3 years I'm using. Jeff Hunter says he was a longtime DMB player, but like SOM, Action PC has passed everyone by. It's my go-to. It's my go-to. So I started with Hafner was the first digital. Went to Pursue the Pennant when they first came out, and they didn't even have an AI. And then that became Diamond Mine Baseball. I stayed with Diamond Mine probably till 2003 or four when I went over to Action, and then I played both for a couple years, and then Diamond Mine went online, and I was involved in that and did some seasons with friends and enjoyed it. But the video chalkboard in Action, the fact I can edit, the engine I love, all the options, I can't find anything. Even when I go back and try to be like this nostalgia thing with DMB 12, which I bought, and Baseball for Windows, which I did get a week ago, I still haven't really gotten back into that. I'm like it. Action satisfies everything. I do like Out of the Park because I enjoyed the Perfect Team with the baseball card stuff. I actually enjoyed that, and I went back and started at 1975 with that season playing it, and I've enjoyed playing that. But to me, it doesn't replace Action. They're two. To me, you should own both, right? It's those games where it's not one or the other. It's like, hey, if you can afford it, I like them for different reasons. Same is true of football. Any football fans out there, I think the three must-owns are Pro Strategy Football because it's so cool for what it does. And Carrie's working on that game, and it's so much fun to play. It's its own thing. Second and 10 is a great game. I own that. I love it. I play it. I enjoy that. And then Action. And to me, they all kind of fit into a different category, and it's like they're all three must-owns in my opinion. I don't think of them as one being better than the other. They're all a little bit different. Um, Arnold's saying he thinks action's one of the best. I really I've played a lot of the football game, but when Mark Bozeman wrote that article for Sports Sim magazine, I don't know if you haven't got the last edition of Sports Sim magazine that Mark Bozeman wrote. It's probably one of the best reviews. I've played that game over the years, and it made me really. It's kind of like going deep under the hood, and he talks about why he thinks that's such a great engine and his own experience being knowledgeable with football and how it replicates a lot of the football decisions and gameplay. It's just a great article. So if you haven't seen the last edition of Sports Sim magazine, I would get that because I even commented on one of the Facebook groups that Mark runs for Action Sports. That man, I basically um, kind of got reacquainted with football after reading it and realized, you know what? There's a lot of things going on to that game that I never even paid attention to how detailed it is, and that I need to even get in and get a little bit smarter about the actual play calling and the game mechanics, I would call it, of just how to manage and call a football game. There's so much more to it than meets the eye. Ken Castro's here. What's up, Ken? Yeah, I thought I'd come on a little bit. I got some time here during lunch and having a coffee, and I get a lot of questions from people, sometimes about the projects that I'm working on and the methodology. So I thought I'd just answer questions, talk a little bit about them. I have the 5-year franchise slice that became my favorite thing that I never thought it would be. And I think I'm up to 90 something teams for each, but I've taken that file and just put it in the background a little bit. So this Negro League project has just been, it's gotten me kind of pumped up because I don't think there's anything out there, right? And Action has great seasons. They have 8 seasons that they've taken the seam head data from to create them. But to me, that's just my opinion. I've done a lot of season replays in the past. I'm not excited to take like the 1934 Negro League season and play it out. I don't have like a frame of reference that makes that exciting for me. Like, let's say 1975 would be a season I remember from being a kid where I was just infatuated with baseball. To me, that has some value because I can relate to that full season replay. And I've done so many in the past that right now I'm just not excited by actual season replays. It's the what if stuff that kind of gets me, I guess, excited right now. The what if, right? Taking multiple years and then the brewing or the creating of the card and all the research behind it and creating something that doesn't exist as is. That's what I love doing. Hey, Robbie, we've got Robbie here. Man, we got 12 people here. We've got a Craving Beatles isn't running, uh, what is it, Baseball for Windows, or Robbie hasn't. So maybe I'm filling the niche here, midday baseball. Ken, I think I've always liked what if. So when I had Action PC Baseball, we're sitting in the dorm room and we're playing they had the greats file. So my buddy Jerry from Maryland, he's got he had the Baltimore team 69. I had the Tiger 68. We played it probably 100 times having beers and cigars and grudge matches. Then immediately I realized you could edit data in Action or in Lance Hafner's game. So over at the library we were in the old days, like with the Macmillan Encyclopedia, trying to figure out how we could go in there and create um, players from scratch. And then figuring out how we could take greatest players from those great teams and bring them over for like an all-star team. So I've always loved that. But then I kind of got soured. I'm going to use your word here, Jeff, soured on this. It's easy nowadays, I think, to grab a few own seasons and pull players in, right? And then you've got that one season. So, you've got 1927 Babe Ruth with 60 home runs. Or in my uh, reference, I always think of Norm Cash 61 that had that great year where he's got 40 plus home runs and he's 300, 350, 360 hitter or something crazy, right? Well, Norm Cash never got anywhere close to that. So if I'm doing a great team or league, I don't like using just the one season. It's not enough for me, right? I also thought about, well, let me just get their career stats. And I'm like, well, that's not good either because that's way watered down. So then my goal has been, what's the best slice? And that's where I think Dave Cook's Action History Collection is wonderful for that. But then I thought, well, I want to do my own and really maybe have a shorter peak so that you can just focus on the best 3 years. And I thought about 7, 5, 3. So that's what I'm really liking now. Because now you can have, let's say, you're still going to get like a Cobb who had 3 great years or a Josh Gibson that I found out in the Negro Leagues, but it's not the 1 year. At least they had to have 3 of their great years, and then I can average that into one. It kind of balances things out better for me, especially to use it as like an all-star league and things like that. The 5-year franchise file I thought was cool because I got to average some years, but they're still tied to a franchise, so there's identity there. And I thought that was cool because you know there's an identity that kind of matches that team during that time with the franchise. But yeah, I've always loved the what if. And I've loved season replays, like the ones from my youth that I like, the 70 seasons, like 72, 75, 76. Probably any of the 70s are the ones that I love to replay. Those are the ones I've done many, many times for a variety of reasons. Seeing if I can get certain teams, managing a team and get them to a better record. I've done as played, which is kind of fun in its own way. And then I've done not as played, where I'm like, hey, let me have full control and maybe play a player a little bit more than they did in real life and see if I can do better. Jeff says, hey, enjoyed your discussion with Dave and Ron. It's how I became a subscription to your channel. Enjoyed watching your games with Beatles yesterday. Hey, Jeff, glad you're here. Yeah, I mean, um, I'm going to be probably trying to come on and do a little bit more because right now I didn't even I was inspired by everybody that had a channel, right? I wandered across Beatles channel one night when I started just looking at Action PC stuff. I've subscribed to Ron Juckett and Dave Gardner was about a year ago. I had no idea there was a community out here of people that were making videos and, loving sports sim and all that. So I'm really just trying to figure out how I can, my goal is I'm not trying to grow a channel per se or whatever, but I mean, it's kind of neat to see people interested in my project. So my idea is, and I've stuck to baseball so far, but I've also done the 5-year slice and decade and all-time greats for basketball over the years, for action and football. And at some point, when I take a break, I may have to just do a dedicated broadcast just for one of those and go over the basketball file and do one dedicated to just football. So, and Big Clue says he agrees with the 3-year slice works for Park Effects to filter out flukes. Why wouldn't it do the same for players? Yeah, and Big Clue, what I'm doing with, if you can picture this, right? Some people don't care about all the stats, but if I average, I'm just going to look at a player here and tell you, here's how I'm figuring out the year they're in, right? Here I got Luke Appling. I'm taking 1936, 40, and 43. I average those years out. I divide by 3, and it comes out to 1940. So what I'm doing is I'm going to assign Luke Appling to 1940. So I'm going to go into Baseball StatHead, and I'm going to take those 3 years I'm using, and I'm going to put all of the data from those 3 years right into his ballpark into 1940 and do the adjusting on my end. So in the game, when you see, hey, I got Luke Appling 1940 and he's in Comiskey, Comiskey has unique factors. So I don't have to worry about taking the 3 years he played and reflecting it in the ballpark. I just assign him to the ballpark and I take all of his other stats and just convert them to 1940, if that makes sense. So I'm doing the work on the front end to help account for the fact that it's not easy to go in and have all this variety of ballpark information. So fun stuff. Love it. Hence, Brady Anderson is not a 50 home run guy, for example. Yeah, exactly. So just showing off some of the cards. I had, I think World's Worst Gamer was on Beatles stream last night talking about that he liked the baseball cards. I'm just having a blast taking these and kind of creating my templates as I go. So we can look at some of the ones I have done here for MLB Greats. You can see I've got raw photos here that I've got ready to go to place the template over them. Let's take a look at DiMaggio here. Let's take a look at, oh, here's Honus Wagner. I know Beatles was asking last night, wants to see some of these, but you can see I probably got 5 or 6 Honus Wagner cards ready to go, right? Got some of these different ones, just having fun with them. And I like to, here's one that did some colorization. I may come back and clean up some of this stuff, but just getting them started. Honus Wagner cards. Got Jimmy Fox. Big Clue says, hey, makes perfect sense. I'm glad it makes sense to somebody besides me, Big Clue. Makes the final result more comparable to other players from other years in park. Yeah, and that's what I'm trying to do. So you were trying to get to an apples and apples things, right? And I've done the same with Negro Leagues, except with Negro Leagues, what I've done is brought them in to a certain year. I've taken their major league equivalency information and their information for the 3 years, converted all that. Then I've brought it into stat heads and then said, okay, now I know what this was in major league equivalents. Now I'm going to tailor make it for a specific year. So if I'm using 1923 as their 3 years average, they come in, I convert them to 1923 National League. So it's getting closer to apples. They will, on my file though, show neutral park because there was no explicit park data for the Negro Leagues to be able to compare that to. So they've just been neutralized themselves. On the file for MLB Greats, it would be like you'd say Luke Appling 1940 and trust everything's been geared towards all of his stats reflecting the 1940 park factor. So it's causing me a little bit of extra computation, but to me, it's the right thing to do so that we can get them on equal footing. Having a blast doing that. So got some Jimmy Fox pictures here. Joe DiMaggio. Again, I'm really focused with the MLB Greats to keep pre-1950 because that's the era I'm looking at for the Negro Leagues, 1900 to about 46, 47-ish, right when Jackie Robinson came in. And I'm not looking to create people that had a good amount of their time to be carded in the major leagues, right? The one exception was Page had several good years in the major leagues, but I created Satchel Paige. So there might be a few players, but if they had a chance, like I'm not doing a Jackie Robinson Negro League version because he only had like a year or so there. So yeah, fun stuff here as I go through and some different, just picking a variety. So if you want some different images used for DiMaggio, got those here. Here's Shoeless Joe Jackson. I'm just a fan of the photo packs to me, it seemed like they were just all headshots, and I'm like, it gets a little boring. I wanted to dress it up. I wanted to dress it up a little bit. So sometimes they'll have, more of a headshot or more of a player, something that shows more of the uniform, and so that you have some options with the photo pack. Anybody recognize this player here? Let's leave it up here, see if anybody can guess who this great player is here that I just got done yesterday creating his data for. Big Clue, to my mind, that gives your results greater integrity than other game player rankings in many cases. I appreciate the fine detail and the transparency. Yeah, and again, I know one of the things I pride myself on, and again, I don't have the answers. All this is guesswork anyway, and it's all guesstimate, but it's just trying to get something that's the most realistic way to approach the data that's there. And there's a lot of art in here. There's some science and math behind it, but it's also like art, like how having to figure out how I'm going to weight that, how I'm going to use the major league equivalencies. It's like baking a cake, right? There's some main ingredients everybody has, but I have my own little bit of, recipe on how I mix all the stuff together. And the play testing and double checking it is important. Fielding ratings. I think there's some great resources out there. I'm a big fan of Wizardry. If anybody knows the Humphreys book, and Fangraphs has a lot of good information that helps me with more objective fielding data, I should say, rather than just reputation. I always look and check at what Action has their ratings and some of the other game engines that I have and resources. But I spend a lot of time on the fielding ratings as well, the arm ratings and that, because I think they matter. Yes, big clue, Johnny Vandermeer. I got a Reds fan in here that would know that, but I've got some pictures ready to go. Haven't made his card yet. But these are some of the raw pictures I've acquired, and I'll drop some templates over. I've colored this, and sometimes the auto colorizing um, that you can do online does a decent job to get it going. But then I've got another one I can go in there and I can kind of start adding a little bit more red in here where it should be red later. There's another one I've got of Vandermeer. So it gives me a variety of photos where you can see more of a portrait look versus maybe more action. Got Lefty Grove pictures ready to go. Here's some ones that I've just gone out and searched and haven't even clipped yet. All right, so I got some good ones there. Here's Lloyd Wainer, one of the Wainer brothers. So I'm having fun with all that good stuff. I've covered it on one other video, but I use Snagit. I mean, I'm sure you could use whatever. I mean, somebody out there making their own templates and that. I use Snagit. Does really well for me. And there's a good example. I did some Honus Wagner. I just come in here, and if it's a National League template, I've got one for the National League, and I get ready, and I'm just going to change it and type in the name I want. Yep, watch my typos. There's Johnny Vandermeer. I convert it down to 240, flatten it, copy it. Now I can go into my pictures and look for Johnny Vandermeer, and this is me just adding my template over pictures. The reason these players all exist are these are the ones that I have all the data completely ready for. I've yet to build them and card them in the game engine yet, right? So into Action. Just got all the raw data and they're ready to be built, and then photos for them. So as I get the pictures done, and I've got probably about 40, 50 of these players done, by this weekend, I'm going to start assembling them into Action and put them on the franchise so that it's an easy way to categorize it, right? I thought, do I make a file that's just nothing but free agents? And I thought, no, let me put them on rosters so I can go in and examine the rosters in the game. And that's what I'm going to do. So I just started yesterday creating a blank league, and I'm going to create the original 8 for the American and National League. And then for these pre-1950 players, as I create them, I'll create them onto the team that has the highest percentage of the 3 years used, if that makes sense. So if a player played for 3 different years that I'm using, I'll look at the one with the most at bats. If it was 2 out of the 3 they played for, like the Reds, then they're going to go on the Reds, even if one of them was on another team. So it'll be an easy way to categorize them. And let's take a look at Johnny Vandermeer. So boom, yeah, I go right over here. Probably trim him down here to about 290. I kind of know how to trim some of these down, and I can paste over here and start trimming my baseball card. And this is how I do it. And a lot of manual work here, but I it's therapeutic in a way, right? So it's like people that knit or do whatever, and I can go up here and hit save, and now I got a Johnny Vandermeer card done. And then I can go in here. Once I get them done, you'll see here with Simmons, I got Al Simmons 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's just so I can distinguish them and give you options, or myself options, when I load them into that subfolder of the player photos. And I can scroll through the roster, and if that certain photo I want to switch to or use, I can do it. Yeah, so this is therapy. Along with crunching the numbers, which I really love, and creating this, this is extra therapy, but it just kind of adds to the immersion for me, right? I can start trimming down, figuring out how much of this I want to use. Just a little bit of trial and error on this. See what it looks like at 260 or whatever. And I can drop some cards. So this is me making baseball cards right here after I've hunted down the raw photos, done some, either somebody's got one out there that I found that's colorized, or I'm running it through an app, a free online app that'll let you just auto color, right? And then there you go. Hit and save again, and away I go. Nice window dressing for the game. Because Jeff Hunter said he's played action football back to the DOS days. Yeah, I wasn't around when it was DOS. Most in-depth sports sim I play. Yeah, and I think SAT to me is a great change of pace. It's its own thing. You get all the seasons. There's cool things you can do. I like playing the games there as well. But to me, action's a different experience. If you really want to just get crazy head to head, like managing and coaching a football game, it's just a great sim. Helps the card pop. Yeah, Big Clue. I agree. And I may have shared it before, but here's the one that I used. Let me pull this over here. I love this site right here, imagecolorizer.com. So I can go up here, and let's take a look at some of the photos I need to colorize. So I can go in here and I'll go to, it'll say, as long as it doesn't go over this size, I just grab the photo I want. See, I've downloaded a couple. Let's see if I've got one that, I think I just downloaded George Sisler's the next player I'm working on. So let's take a look at, here's George Sisler. I hit start. It'll take it a little bit. Here it is. I go to hit download, and see, it just adds a little bit of color. I could always come back here with another um, thing I have that allows you to grab some colors and then kind of brush it in over here and even enhance it more if I want to spend the time. But now I just save that image, and I'll call it something. So I've got a few George Sislers in here, George Sisler 6, and save it. And then when I go to create them, I'll delete the black and white ones out. So it does a pretty good job. You can only do 5 at a time down here, but then you just go up to the top and grab some more. And there's some more George Sislers I have right here. Here's another one. So you can see I've already done this, renamed it. So I've got 2 more to do that are black and white. Let's open those up. I'll put some color on these 2, see how they look, and then resave those and get rid of the black and white ones. And now I've got them ready. So when I create his card template, I can just come and drop it over the top and do a little bit of trimming and save it. And now I've got his cards done. See what this one looks like. Yeah, not bad. Adds a little bit of color. It's great for a free online colorizer. I'll just name it something different than I already have right there. So we got that done. Come back over here. Here's another one I've got that I can trim, play around with. Hit it again. Yeah. So now when I'm done with all that stuff, I can just go over here and look at the George Sislers I had that I got rid of and just delete them. So now I know every one of these George Sislers is ready for my card template to be made and dropped over the top. So I think I'm all caught up. I've got all the color I need on some of these and just need to create some. Here's Pete Alexander. Whoops, I don't need to go back out of this one here and just look at them and just show off these. I've got Pete Alexander here for the Phillies. Got him ready to go. A couple nice ones. So looking forward to having these in the game. Another one that somebody I found that already colorized. So enjoying it. So let me drop this down. And let me figure out, let me fire the game up for a minute here, and got a few more minutes left to talk some baseball here. Here is the history collection. So you'll see if I go into, I've got a baseball history master that Dave Cook sells. This is a must own. If anybody doesn't have it, get it. It's great. I got to figure out where it's at. All my Negro League files are good. So baseball history, right? So now I've got that upgraded to the 2022 master. So we've got every player in here. I have a bunch of other stuff that was included, like some subsets that I can install. And just click on the baseball history master. This is really cool because it comes as free agents. So all the players are sitting as free agents. So this takes a while to load, but there's no rosters to click on because it's really just a pool of players for you to assemble however you want. Some great what if projects. But if you go into this master file to see the players, you can always go to database and search and list and scroll down, or you can go to organize player search and just search for the player. So if I see, let's hit Tony Gwynn. You don't even have to type all the name in. Usually search. Oh, it's got Tony Gwynn. Click on him and it's going to pull up his card. And you can, uh-oh. What just happened? Had this issue yesterday with that file. Trying to pull up the file. Let me take a look at, maybe I've corrupted my folder. Let me go to this one. This one I was using. This is a file that has everybody that played carded on their peak slice, but they have to have like a minimum 500 at bats in their career or so many innings pitched, right? So you're not going to get some really low level players on this. But the nice thing, if this will work, let's type in Tony Gwynn here. You can search for Tony Gwynn. And I don't know what I've done. I may have corrupted a file here or something. Man, I've been the runtime king yesterday with all kinds of stuff. Been crazy. Let's just go show it off a different way. Really annoying here. Let's take a look at database. We'll just click on the database and look at all the players on it. Yeah, I'm not sure, Big Clue, what the DMB file was for their all-time greats. Look at this thing spinning and spinning. Yeah, taking a while to load this database. So this would be at least 500 plate appearances and so many innings pitched to be on this, but it's a pretty good size chunk of players, thousands and thousands of them. Da, da, da. Wow, this is fun. It's like watching paint dry. Well, thought I was going to show this off, but guess not. Just going to shut it down. Thought I was going to show something off, but what the heck? We'll just fire it up and I'll show I'll show something different. Yeah, Big Clue is exactly right there. When Tom Tippett got out of there and they started going to that online stuff instead of improving like the game, yeah. Because DMB's got just a, I love the game. They got a great game engine. And the online thing, I've had fun with that. I've played throughout the years over that, but it's just now, I have so much more fun with action doing that. So here is the MLB greats. So here's what I started doing. I just started creating some teams here to go into. And then as I start building these greats out, I can have like a Boston franchise team. I just set them to 1940. I can start adding all the Boston players. I have yet to go in and name the teams. One easy way to do that is I can just go under team information right here, I believe. and I can just go team by team and just figure out, what I need to do. So I need to have a New York franchise for sure. Add the Yankees on here, my abbreviation. I'm setting them to just for the heck of it, 1940. There's going to be an American League team, yes. Neutral, yeah. Sign team to year, yes. Boom. So there you go. And then you can just scroll down for all your teams and add them. I still got to build them all. So my whole goal is get all the AL teams, all 8, all the NL teams here, and then as I start building this week, all the players I have the raw data for, I can just start as I create them, drop them under the appropriate franchise, since I'm focused on the first half of the 1900s anyway. We're lucky they've updated all subsequent versions, even if the changes are minimal. Yes, indeed. So, yes, I'm putting this one. I fired up the NL one yesterday. I have my 5-year slices that many of you have downloaded. If you haven't, shoot me an email at state, S-T-A-T-E 21 at comcast.net, and I'm happy to shoot you all my updated files of whatever sport it is. But this is the latest NL file I had. So I think there's like 92 teams done. The latest team I did was this Philly team that's horrible pitching and really tough batting, and they were well below 500. But it's just an interesting team that I built. That was the last one I created because you got Lefty O'Doul and Chuck Klein here. A lot of that. Look at all these 300 plus hitters in the field they played in. Pitching, it's a sad state of affairs with that pitching. But anyway, that's the one that I created last. But this is the 5-year slice where I was taking a 5-year run for a franchise and then trying to, create. I using a player's best 2 consecutive years with that. I had a blast with this. I never thought I would even do anything like this until somebody gave me the idea, and then they gave me a list of some of the franchises, and I just started assembling teams. And interestingly enough, I was getting enough players to cover all the position. I'm like, hey, this works out great if I use 2 years in a row averaged for a 5-year run. I'm like, this is coming out with some great teams. So I just kept building and building and building. And then recently people found this and enjoyed it. So probably in the last 2 months, I put a lot of work in enhancing and building out more of the team. So I've got 180 total. Got so big I had to spread them out and use the Action's new 120 team limit on a file. So I have a specific NL file and an AL file. Yeah, tape saturator. It's not the game, it's me. I've got something going on here that's that I've caused that I might have to do an install or something. I've corrupted something, but I'm in and out of files so much. My middle name's Runtime Error, especially yesterday. If you guys saw the online game that Beatles and I had, it was a blast. But Negro League file, let me pull that up and show that off a little bit. Trying to see. Team 1, Team 2. So this is the file. I created 2 teams just to throw them on. And you can see here that I've got the players. Let's go take a look at, I'll pull up the database. Got 55 players done. It should be 55 if I view all players. I have 55 players completely done. And more to come. I've had fun doing this, right? And I've stopped here and did some play testing with Beatles, and I'm going to be looking at making sure that I've followed my formulas and they're working well with the major league equivalencies and taking the 3 years and trying to bring them over into MLB seasons. Satchel Paige, I'm starting to wonder, his 8.4 strikeouts per 9 was killing me yesterday. I mean, it just stuck out to me that like against some of my big swingers, and what I may have to do is I may have to go back and look at, he might be a hair high when I'm converting him over to the major leagues. He still might be a hair high on strikeouts because the MLB for the same equivalent years had less strikeouts per game than the Negro Leagues did, if you look at their era data. So that may need some fine tuning. I have to go back and double check, which I can do. And I may need, there could be a double impact. I may have the batters showing as striking out more than they should be. They need to be gauged down just a little bit to make them MLB equivalent, if that makes sense to everybody. So Page is getting a benefit by still having too high of strikeouts, and the batters are getting shown that they're striking out too much. Both may need to be tweaked down just a little bit to be a little bit more realistic. So I'm going to look at that. And I'm not looking at it because I got my butt kicked yesterday. I just looked at some of the strikeout percentages in the outcome box, and they were like in the 60%. And I'm like, that's really high. So those games are great to let me go in there and figure out if I need to go back and kind of fine tune. Yeah, Big Clue says his speedster stopped. Well, you know what's so funny about his speedsters? They didn't really do anything with speed. His speedsters outslugged me there in extra innings and laid it on me at the end, which was crazy. But yeah, Satchel Paige. If anybody wants to go back on my channel here yesterday and look at the game we played, he put on a heck of a performance, man. And Page did when we drafted these teams, he was an afterthought. We skipped him. We were just drafting other players. Then we used the matchup analysis tool and took a look at how strong he would be against my team because I had power. I had power hitters. So that was definitely fun. But there's always tomorrow, right? And yeah, not sour grapes, but yeah, I think they might need to be tweaked down a little bit because, in fact, I'll pull that up if anybody's interested. I can tell you some of the era data I have. Let me pull up I have some raw era data. As an example, if we start looking at, let's say, in the early 1920s, in baseball, the strikeouts per 1,000 at bats, the ratio is for American and National League, it's in the 80s, right? About 88 or so on average in the early 20s. When you look over at the Negro Leagues, that is going to be somewhere around 118 to 121. Midlife crisis. Answer is no. But you can start from the beginning as soon as I end this and go back and watch it. But I like the suggestion. So let me do some quick math here, right? So if you figure we're going to major league equivalent kind of bring them in from their era. If you've got a 200 strikeout pitcher in the early 20s, and I bring him over into the MLB, right? You're going to figure we're going to take, I think it's, let me look at my numbers right. Let's just say it's 89, right? And we're going to divide it by 118, right? You're going to see that that's around a 75% reduction to take that same player from that and bring him into this universe where it was different amount of strikeouts as a starting point, right? There can be a little bit of nuance as you start looking at that. So I've got to go back and adjust. So if you've got a 200, just if he struck out 200 people on his average car, multiply that by 75%, and that 200 strikeouts in that era would be about 150 over here because you're coming into an era where they weren't striking out that much. The cool thing is, I'm starting to compile. I don't have it all done yet, but I can show you over here if anybody's into all this stuff. This is all my era data that I have. I have all kinds of crazy sheets. This is all my era data for AL and NL right here. And I'm starting to put stuff back together here. I had another sheet. Now I'm transferring it over to this one. This is the known Negro League data. So you can see right here under strikeouts, those numbers are high. Under here, you're looking at in the same 20s, 88, 86. American League's a little bit higher. But again, you're looking at 80s, 90s is the strikeout rate over there. So average, Negro League average, 250, 60, 70s. You look over here for National League, and it's a little higher, probably 15 to 16 points higher in Major League Baseball than it was in the Negro Leagues. But then again, you got to realize they were playing in big parks. We don't have park data to really get their park factors out of their data before we come over and do all these other conversions. But I can tell you, they played in a lot bigger pitcher-friendly parks, so you'll see pitcher-friendly numbers to a large degree average-wise. Geek, yeah, big clues like geek. I'm geeking out over all these numbers, but yeah, this. So I'm with seam heads, I can take all the known leagues, and sometimes it's crossing years. Like you'll say it'll be partial 18, 18, and 19 in Mexican leagues and different leagues, but I'm trying to get a good rolling average here of all of to fill all of this in so that we have all this data, and then I can compare it. And for the final file, I can make sure the major league equivalencies that I'm using have taken into account the proper increases or reductions for strikeouts, walks, home runs given up, overall average, that good stuff. That's the real key to try to get some equal balance to play. The other thing I've done here is I started, if you see these, this is the raw numbers. I started using 3-year, like the regress rolling averages down here. So down here, I've taken it and put them into 3-year averages. And then I said, okay, cool, let me come up with decades. So then I can look at, here's 1900s AL. And if I wanted to say, what was the average style averaging all those, you've got them right here. And I'm still working on all that, so I can have that done. I'll be adding Negro Leagues to this too. Anyway, enough boring stuff. Cool, cool. Glad we've got 14 viewers here. My gosh, that's like a big day. I've got probably about 4 or 5 more minutes here before I have to run and get back from my lunch. Thought I appreciate everybody coming in talking baseball. Turned on my camera today, just talking about some of the projects, the baseball card stuff I'm enjoying. I'm crunching. Let me pull up some of the data if anybody's interested in seeing the raw data of here. So I've got a formula sheet I use over here. That's not very interesting, but at least here's some of the folks that are completely done. Let me see if I can bump this up for you. You can see some of these players. Maybe it's easier. Here's some of the players. You can start seeing here. I have to go back here. I'm putting in the height and weight because I'm going to make sure I do that. I need to go back in here. If there's a known uniform number, I'm going to put that in the game. Nicknames. This will be their base year. I'm going to go back into, I've got it on another sheet and add in the actual park because I've got all the park data that I'm taking into account. Because some of these players, for example, like maybe for Frankie Frisch, I'm using a St. Louis season. So I have to go and look at the park data for that St. Louis season in Busch, the other two for the Giants. And then, as an example, I don't know if that's the case with this, do all that manipulation here to make his card be 1923 Polo Grounds. So, but I want to come back here for reference, and so I know exactly what park that 1923 is assigned to. Still have to do that, but this is the raw data, and here's split data against lefties up here. So these players are ready to card. These are ready to build in the game. And then I go to fielding. I have all of them up here. I can zoom it in a little bit. You can see now I've got all the fielding done. These have all been rated. Some other ones I don't have the final rating. See, I'm undecided. I don't know whether I'm going to give Chuck Klein an arm 9 or 10. Right here in center field for Max Carey, he's going to be either an 8 or a 9. I've got him at an 8.5. That lets me know that when I go to card him, I'm going to ultimately have to make a final decision because I've got different sets of data that are doing that. Same thing with DiMaggio. The 3 years I'm using, I've got his arm rating pretty much locked down. He's either going to be an 8, possibly a 9. I got to really kind of play around and see here. And you can, and that's, I'm tracking here the seasons I'm using. Same thing for, yeah, thanks for spending my lunch. You bet, big clue. Same thing for pitchers. Trying to think what's interesting and maybe stands out here. If you look at the averages, look at some of these averages over here. And I'll drop some filters on here so I can manipulate a little bit later. But look at this. Here's Harry Heilman. He's a 400 hitter based on the years that are being used right here. 409 for Rogers Hornsby. Cobb's up there at a 392. Napoleon Lajoie right here is at 384. George Sisler, I've yet to card him. I'll be working on him later if I get a chance, right? Tris Speaker's on here. Honus Wagner. So I've started with kind of the better known players that pop into mind to card. And I've got enough here along with these pictures to now start building a team in action to play them against kind of barnstorming against the Negro League. So you can see if there is enough information in RetroSheet for me to actually get left-handed splits, I'm doing it. Where it says EST means we don't have enough split data for there to be a report on it. So when I build Walter Johnson's card, I'm going to have to use the estimator that is built into Action to do that. So the other ones that have enough, I'm using actual lefty data. So you can kind of get an idea here. These are only pictures I've got so far. And I've got pitchers fielding data. So when I build them in the field, I know how many games, what their range, their pitcher hold rating, and then their raw fielding stats. And then they also pitchers batting. The one thing I'm going to do to save time is, since I'm using slices, I'm going to go ahead for pitchers batting and use the estimated generator on those and just put in these raw numbers here. So we take a look at pitchers batting here, we can see, what do you expect? Their pitchers. Although I can say 252 for Walter Johnson's pretty good pitcher card when it comes to batting. Really surprised with Burley Grimes. He's a 289 hitter for the 3 years I'm using it. I'm using him 20, 21, and 28. It's a great example of 20 and 21 are with Brooklyn, 28 is with Pittsburgh. So to average his stats out, it took some time because I've got to go look at the park data from 28 for Forbes, and then I'm looking at Ebbets in 20 and 21. And then I'm also neutralizing his stats through StatHeads to 1923 Ebbets. Anyway, little information behind the scenes there. A lot of computation, but the idea is now when you see him in the game, he's assigned to 23 Ebbets, but everything's been factored to match that. So, and I've got my dogs excited because somebody's here. So let them out. So cool. Well, I'm going to wrap it up. I'll probably maybe try doing this a couple times a week if people like this, and do some kind of a midday during my lunch, just check in and chat, maybe answer some questions, show off where I'm at with this project. This is my big one next. But I am going to have to take a break one day and maybe pull up my basketball file if anybody's interested in just to have a dedicated maybe basketball showing that off. I've got a few files I've done over the years for that, like an all-time great 70s that was a decade based on a player's best 3 years, and I've got a 5-year slice for that, and then I also have the football one too. So maybe I can do that. He's one of my faves from that era. Oh, I want to see Wes Farrell's. Okay, hold on. This is for Big Clue. Let me add him. I've added Wes Farrell, so he'll be the next one that that I rate. So you got it. And you can see I've got this same. Well, I've got different files here, but these are the final ones for the Negro League that I've got. And then I've got a lot of my kind of working stuff that helps me try to figure out how I'm carding it. But I am going to go back and look because I want to double check that, because it's looking to me like for some of the 1920s players, and I'd have to look at, I'm going to have to double check Satchel Paige here. Let's pull him up and just see how crazy he is. Oh, that's his batting. How about pitching neutralized? Let's take a look at Satchel. So we look at Satchel Paige. He's right here. Oh, I've got this filter on here. So Satchel Paige, yeah, 283 innings. He's only given up 232 hits in that. But when we look at that, he's got 63 strikeouts. And my gut's telling me that I need to go back and double check or take a look at the formula I've got over here on the other sheet to adjust down for era, because Satchel Paige is 1932. So I have to go back and look at the era for that. That'll be fun. Arnold says football and basketball will be great. And you know what? While I got a minute, maybe I'll just, well, I've got 14, 13 people here now left. I do have to go in about 2 minutes, but let's fire that thing up. I haven't got Action's new file yet, so I'm still playing 2021 basketball. The only reason I haven't bought the new one yet is I'm so busy doing baseball and that I've kind of put off getting it. This one was fun because I pretty much have a lot of the picture photo packs done for this team. Um, I've got some placeholder spots here to build more teams, but I haven't organized them like up here, like I have with baseball, to try to like in the 50s, 60s, 70s. I could spend some more time to get this a little bit neater. But let's take a look at, anybody have a team? Throw it in here. Anybody have a favorite team they want to look at? I'm a Piston fan, but I'm also a big 76er fan. Um, a Dr. J fan. Dr. J was one of my favorites when I was a kid. Love Dr. J number 6. I also was a big fan of my picture back here, Al Kaline number 6. 19. Oh, Carlos. Yes, welcome. Check out this Pacer team. I'm going to show you what I've got for the Pacers. Interestingly enough, I have a 69-73 partial ABA, right? When they were still in the, well, all ABA actually. So we look at this team, I've got them rated. Again, I used a player's best 2 straight years during this 5-year run. So here's John Barnhill, Art Becker, Roger Brown, Mel Daniels. Everyone's a Lobo. Woof, woof, woof. That's where I went to college. I'm a Lobo. Mel Daniels, big Lobo. Next big, probably Michael Cooper, who was a Lobo. Kenny Thomas, who played in the NBA, was a Lobo. Luke Longley, who was actually there when I was there. Luke Longley was a Lobo. But anyway, George McGinnis on that team. And I've got a newer Pacer team. See, I don't have these in order, so now I got to dig around. Here we go. How about a Reggie Miller team right here? So you can see you got Rick Smits, Antonio Davis, right? And I'm putting in, it's weird, that one's not showing. There should be more showing, like where it's not kind of, Lord Byron, the mayor, Reggie, Jalen Rose. So got a lot of, I've got photo packs for a majority of these. We got a Celtic fan here, Forever Remain 90. Let's take a look at one of the Celtics teams. 84. So I've got a 19, and where it says 81, trust me, that's 81-82 season, right? I'm using the year that started. So this would be 81-82 all the way to the 85-86 team for the 5-year run. And you can see player ratings, all the good stuff here. This is a fun, really big basketball fan when I was in high school. Huge basketball fan. Got all pumped when the Pistons drafted Isaiah Thomas, and we used to get into the Silverdome for $4 for the nosebleed seats up there. And when they were really bad, you could make it down to about the 10th row by the end of the first period, which was great times. Then when they started winning, it got harder and harder to get the cheap seats and walking your way down. But saw many games back in high school days from 81 to about 84. So got that team, the 76er team. I've got this great Dr. J team here. Moses Malone, all that good team here, Dr. J on there. And also have a newer Sixer team with Iverson somewhere. Oh, this one. Have an Iverson team here, 98-02, and then also can't go wrong with that 65-69 team. If anybody here is a fan of Wilt. Forever Remind 90 wants me to stream a golf round or an NBA game from time to time. You know what? I think my next one then, outside of baseball, will be maybe here in the next week or so, fire up my 5-year franchise file and run a basketball game. That could be fun. But here's Wilt, Hal Greer, Billy Cunningham. Fun stuff. This has been a fun one to make too. And there's some teams I don't think I have pictures for all of them. I don't know if I've done. Oh, I have done Golden State with Run TMC. Okay. How about a Golden State team? Oh, that's obnoxious every time I double click here. With Rick Barry, Nate Thurmond. Anyway, fun stuff. So it's been a fun afternoon. Did you see a St. Louis Spirits team? Hold on. You did not. Not a Marvin Bad News Barnes team. What you saw is probably an early St. Louis team right here with Clyde Lovelet and Bob Pettit. Nope. I have the pictures. I just haven't created the cards yet for this group. Carlos Yaz is playing Action PC College back. I did a file years ago, Carlos. It's been out on the Action or SportsReplay.net. I did a file a long time ago where people had sent me, I forget who it was, gave me a bunch of raw data from some old games that we converted to stats, and I built a lot of college great teams that weren't Final Four teams, like the old Paul Westphal USC team, Pete Maravich with LSU. It was. Let me see if I can pull that. Let me see if I can pull that one up. I don't even know what it's called. It's got to be an old one here. College greats, something like that. Gosh, I haven't pulled that. I haven't seen this file. College greats 01/01/1913. This might be it. Let me take a look. Oh yeah. This might be. I'm not sure. Looking how I did. I can tell you if this is one I did based on who's in it. Yeah, 70 LSU, definitely. There are some other people that have worked and built their own teams and then combined them with stuff that we've all done and kind of compiled them and made them better over the years. I haven't touched that original file since I did it, but I can tell you one of my favorite teams was an 85-86 Roy Tarpley and Antoine Jobert, Gary Grant, Michigan team with Glenn Rice as a freshman. I built that. Hey, guaranteed nobody else was building this New Mexico team with Kenny Thomas. But this was one of the teams that, yeah, it is. It probably is on the Field of Dreams replay site, Arnold. But that's one of those. I put a bunch of stuff out there. Some other guys started adding teams and doing stuff. I call that like a community effort. I just never haven't looked at it in years, but I built a bunch of teams I wanted to have in there, and one of my favorites was this one right here. Love that team with Tarpley and Gary Grant. And somebody built an 86 team. Yeah, that's 85-86. Depends on how they've named this. Sometimes it can be confusing. Is 86 85-86 or is it 86-87? I just went with the standard format. I think Action uses the first year for that season, the end of the year that it started, and I think I stuck with that because it can get confusing. 87 Providence. Oh yeah, who was the oh God, what was his name back in the day? I'll pull the team up. I know who you're talking about. I'm forgetting his name. The guard. Maybe it's 86 Providence. Yeah, heck, I don't have him. Can't see him here, but this is one I downloaded in 13. I probably can. There's probably an old file when I was first working on it, with it I made to the gave to the community. Let's see what the heck that one's at. 1980s basketball. Oh boy, the one I've got here. I don't know if I've made this available. Okay, that's 5-year franchises. I started creating the entire 85-86 and quit on that. College greats, great college teams. Okay, so this would have been the one that I did. And then I think others have just taken a hodgepodge of what everybody's done a lot of work on it. Been 20 years since I've pulled up this file, so let's see. Hmm. Yes, yes, yes. I remember this one well. Man, it's like a black. Oh, look at this. Here's that scandal team, the Lobo team with I did with Cooper, Michael Cooper on it. Yeah, this was fun stuff. Fun, fun stuff. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks for stopping by. Um, I will definitely, I think my next one here in the next week, I'll put together broadcast during the day and we'll pull up some of this basketball stuff, play a game, have some fun with it. But I will see you all down the road. Thanks for sharing some midday afternoon with me. Just had some fun explaining some of the projects and more to come. Um, thanks everybody that's here. Jeff Hunter, Carlos Yaz is showing up. Love it. Yeah, that Michigan team was tough. Arnold Hunter, Sports Time Machine. Nice. Eric Murdoch went there. Ken Castro here today. Forever Remain 90. Big Celtics fan, evidently. Big Clue is always coming in. Tape Saturators here. Robbie was here. Who else did I miss? Midlife Crisis was here. Yeah. The Cubs, the Bears. Appreciate everybody and have a great rest of your day. Keep simming games out there and let me know if you got any suggestions for anything I can come on with videos, show any of the sport files. Keep it fresh, right? Change it up a little bit. Have a good one, everyone.